The Herdersmen or Fulani as a tribe in Nigeria, they are insisting that southern Nigeria and Nigeria must surely collapse and they will take over.
Thank you for having me. I must tell you that the Fulani incursion have not stopped. Looking at what is happening currently, it looks as if the Fulani globally have decided to converge in Nigeria, because what we hitherto here in the north is now with us in the south. And if I must tell you, I will tell you that the Hausas were not circumspect enough, they were not careful enough, but allowing the Fulani to infiltrate into their ranks. And currently, they are taking over every leadership space in the north, taking over every traditional rulership place in the north, taking over all the political class leadership in the north. Now, their next target is the southern part of the country. That is where everybody must come together and unite against this evil. But this time around, I must tell you that it is no longer about whether a Tinubu will rig election or not. I think the whole South should be ready, as long as the Tinubu is ready to summon the courage that is needed to confront the Fulani. I think everybody needs to come together to support him to crush these bandits. And we understand that someone like Ajayi, the current Director General of DSS, made it very clear the other day that the communities are needed in this fight. Of course, he made it clear that the communities should be the first line of defense when invasion occurs. And if you look at the Fulani, these are people who came into Nigeria in sometime 14th, 15th century. Around 19th century, of course, they successfully established a caliphate in Sokoto, which is equally seen as Fulani empire. But the problem is, how did Hausa allow this boat to take over every leadership position in the north, to the point that it becomes a problem to even ask them to go? If you look at Senegambia, like Senegal and Gambia, where they originally came from, you understand that this people mean business with Nigeria. Because in Senegal, for instance, their population there is just 5.something million. Whereas in Nigeria here, they are already 15.something million. In Gambia, they are just about 420,000. So you begin to wonder, how do a people leave their ancestral home, travel miles away, and settle here in Nigeria? They are already a menace to the society. So for me, I think as long as a Tinubu is ready to do the needful, is ready to do the right thing, this is not about who win the election. This is no longer about whether the election was legal or not. Nigerians, particularly the Southerners, must queue behind the president to deal with this serious threat. I will tell you a very ugly experience that happened in Delta State, and coincidentally, this happened in the local government of Okowa. Talking about the immediate past governor of Delta State, in a place, one of the communities. And from what we saw in that video, the community have to contribute 10 million naira as a ransom that was demanded by Fulani bandits to free the members of the community. And according to them, the reason they decided to even go into that contribution is that when a similar thing happened in the past, perhaps they were food dragging, the bandits killed their village members. So this thing is already here with us, and to be honest with you, we must approach it decisively. Otherwise, everybody will be in for trouble.
So, but you see the governor, these people you are talking about, they come into a party, that made Boko Haram or popular. Let me just put it that way, and we are seeing a continuation of this very particular party happens to be the ruling party without doing anything up to this moment. But the political leaders are moving toward that direction. What does this actually portend? Just like what we saw in Imo State, where Mazi Nnamdi Kanu make it very clearly in the court there that Hope Uzodinma was behind the infiltration of Fulani in the eastern part of the country.
I will tell you that the reason you see governors jumping from PDP to APC is simply because of their pecuniary interests. It's not because of the interest of the masses. Of course, we understand the nature of Nigerian politics. What drives politicians is their personal interest, personal aggrandizement. In Delta State, where you see all PDP stakeholders, all the structure be emptied into APC, there's no other reason you can justify to have caused that other than personal interest. But let me tell you that if elections were to be free and fair, it is irrespective of who defects, because the people who are the ultimate power to decide who wins an election is electorate. Of course, when it comes to the business of voting, the people that have the power to hire and fire is the electorate. I will even cite the Delta State as an instance. In the last election of 2023, where Okowa, who was the former governor of the state, was a candidate, a vice presidential candidate to Atiku. I'll tell you that Okowa lost his local government to P2B. So it is not even about who defects. Even in those states where PDP was the government in place as at the time they conducted the election, PDP lost to Labour Party. So it is not even about who defects. The problem we have in this part of the world is that the electoral process is not free, fair, and credible. And as long as they are willing to make the electoral process free, fair, and credible, it is no longer going to be fashionable for people to start jumping from PDP to APC. We saw what happened in Kebbi State yesterday, where 3 senators in PDP defected to APC after having planned a side meeting with the president, talking about Senator Tinubu. But it is another thing to say all these evil things, all these atrocities, all this way of the country sliding into this crisis of insecurity happen under the watch of APC, and you see people jumping into APC. It tells you that Nigeria's electoral system is not working, and that is where as far as I blame P2B, I blame Atiku, I blame Kwankwaso, of course I blame all the major stakeholders in the opposition political parties, because by now we ought to have been seeing vigor, tenacity, action on the part of the likes of P2B, on the part of Atiku, on the part of Kwankwaso, to put pressure on INEC to amend the Electoral Act. Because remember that the Electoral Act, particularly the area that gives INEC the discretionary power to transmit the election results, talking about section 82 of the Electoral Act, is the reason people contested the election result up to Supreme Court. But for me, I don't know why the likes of Obi, Atiku, are for dragging. But as a way of going back to the subject of conversation, it is irrespective of whether Tinubu won the election rightly or wrongly. Now, life is at stake. Life is sacrosanct. We don't have what it takes to create life. As we speak, Tinubu is the president and the commander of the armed forces. He have what he has been given. He has sworn an oath to protect life and property. To that extent, I think all the South must unite and support him to fight this menace. As long as he's showing the courage to do it. Because currently I've not seen enough courage anyway. But I'm encouraged by the boldness of the director of DSS, talking about Ajayi, who made it very clear that the community should be armed to confront this evil.
These are people who keep on saying almost similar thing on daily basis, yearly, government after government, era after era, and nothing has been done.
I quite agree with you, but hence life is being lost, and we have a situation where people are yearning. Of course, if you look at what is happening, the major reason Nnamdi Kanu started his advocacy way back is not far from this. Because Nnamdi Kanu was very emphatic about the killing of his people, talking about the Biafrans, the Igbos. And of course, we have seen how he has been arrested or rather abducted in Kenya. And that is why everybody is telling federal government, let us have Nnamdi Kanu out of this DSS custody. Because if you look at what is happening in the country, you begin to wonder, why should Nnamdi Kanu, who stands for justice, equity, and fairness, who stands for self-determination, and we all know that self-determination is a right, going by a Nigerian government that have subscribed to a UN charter that talks about self-determination, why should it be languishing in self? Even after a court of appeal in Nigeria ruled that Nnamdi Kanu was extraordinary rendition for Kenya to Nigeria, was that not enough reason for Nigerian government to discontinue that case and allow the man to go? Judging from the point that even the very government, as we speak, is releasing support repentant Boko Haram into the larger society under the guise of maybe reintegration, de-radicalization and reintegration into the society. And I saw a video from a former governor of Kaduna State talking about Malalazi Arifai, who made it very clear that there is nothing like repentant bandits. And this is somebody who should know better. Of course, the former governor who was in the saddle, who have access to security report in his time as a governor. He said that the only bandit that have repented is one that have died. That his own ideology, his own approach is to send them to their creator, who ultimately had the power to judge them. So hearing such testimony, I begin to wonder, why should the Nigerian government be wearing repentant Boko Haram white robe and reintegrating into the society? For me, it's a great threat to peace. It's a great threat to mankind in this part of the world.
You are talking about Bola Ahmed Tinubu taking action against Fulani in Nigeria, and you forgot that the Nnamdi Kanu factor is still being held by the same factor call, Fulanization. These are products of where we don't know where they come from, what they represent. They still, people still feel that Tinubu is in continuation with what the agenda is like. Do not release Nnamdi Kanu. And you can see, Nnamdi Kanu is now facing trial from afresh.
You cannot take away the fact that Nnamdi Kanu have drawn global attention. Nnamdi Kanu is already a world diplomat. It doesn't matter the opinion of anybody. You may like his face or you don't like his face. We are seeing UN working group on arbitrary detention, talking to the Nigerian government directly because of Nnamdi Kanu that he should be released. And that did not happen until we saw Court of Appeal in Nigeria giving that landmark victory, talking about extraordinary rendition. And the other time we clearly saw the foreign affairs minister from Russia, who made it very clear that going forward, Nigeria, the world, countries, UN, European Union should start respecting self-determination. And we understand that when we talk of self-determination globally, the first thing that comes to mind is the Nnamdi Kanu and Biafra. So it doesn't, and Nnamdi Kanu himself, that's why I call it salute his courage, because this is a man who has said that he's ready to remain in detention until there's an impartial judge to adjudicate his case with federal government. I think he has maintained that stand, and he has not been broken. All this while, he has been in the DSL facility. Anytime you see him in court, you see that vigor, you see that energy. You see a man who is resolute in what he believes in. He made it very clear before the watchful eye of international media, local media, that he fight because it's his right to fight. And of course, nobody can come against that. Even if you look at all the charges against him, you will not see anything that has to do with self-determination. Because even the federal government of Nigeria know that Nnamdi Kanu have the right of self-determination.